Before we begin, I just want to say that this video discusses a real and sensitive case involving alleged poisoning and loss of life. My intention is never to cause harm or distress, but to share this story with care, respect, and awareness. As this case has received significant public attention, I encourage viewers to remember that information can change as investigations and legal proceedings develop. If this case feels like it may be too much for you, please feel free to click away and take care of yourself first. For those of you still here, thank you for being here. And with that said, let's begin. It started with what seemed like a normal family lunch. People sitting around a table, talking, eating, and spending time together. Nothing appeared unusual, but in the days that followed, people became seriously ill. And suddenly, what should have been an ordinary meal became one of the most talked about cases in recent years. This is the story of Erin Patterson. Erin Trudy Patterson was born on the 30th of September 1974, making her a Libra, and she was born in Adelaide, South Australia. Her father was a civil servant, and her mother worked as an academic and lecturer. In 1992, Erin was accepted for a science course at the University of Melbourne and later switched to accounting. She also trained to be an air traffic controller and graduated in 2001. Following her graduation between February 2001 and November 2002, Erin worked as an air traffic controller with Air Services Australia in Melbourne. By 2004, Erin worked as an animal management employee for RSPCA Australia at the Monash City Council's headquarters. In the same year, she began dating Simon Pattinson, who worked as an engineer at Monash City Council. In July 2006, Erin inherited 2 million Australian dollars from her grandmother, which was paid to her over an 8-year period commencing in 2007. Erin married Simon in 2007, and they moved to Western Australia, living in Perth, York, and Pemberton. Erin ran a second-hand bookshop in Pemberton while her husband worked for the local council. While living in Western Australia, Erin gave birth to their son. During this period, Erin bonded with Gail and Don Pattinson, her parents-in-law. Prior to the birth of their daughter, Erin and Simon relocated to Coonawarra, Victoria, to be closer to her in-laws. Erin further bonded with Don over a shared love of knowledge and learning, and that she liked his gentle nature. Erin attended a Baptist church whose pastor, Ian Wilkinson, was married to Gail Pattinson's sister, Heather. Erin's father died from cancer in 2011, and in 2019 her mother also died from cancer. Erin and her sister inherited her parents' estate, which included a $900,000 beachfront retirement home in Eden, New South Wales. Erin's share of her parents' estate allowed her and Simon to provide interest-free loans to his 3 siblings and their spouses to buy homes. Erin's relationship with Simon began to deteriorate following the birth of their first child. The couple underwent several short-term separations before reaching a financial settlement and long-term split in 2015. Following their separation, Erin and Simon shared custody of their 2 children and remained on friendly terms, including going on holidays together. In 2022, Erin and Simon's relationship deteriorated after he filed a tax return, which listed himself as single. Due to this change in his relationship status, Erin became ineligible for government child support payments, with Simon being told by a federal government agency to stop paying his children's school fees and medical bills. While Simon claimed that this change in status was the result of a mistake by his accountant, the incident damaged the couple's relationship. Between November 2021 and September 2022, Simon was hospitalized 3 times with gastrointestinal symptoms, with the second incident resulting in a coma and requiring life-saving surgery. A medical expert's report, commissioned for the trial, stated that Simon's symptoms were consistent with the ingestion of barium carbonate, an ingredient in rat poison. These details were suppressed for the duration of Erin's murder trial. In the 2 years leading up to the family lunch on 29th July 2023, Erin's relationship with her in-laws had become estranged. Erin had missed several family events and attended some others only briefly. Erin stated that she had been snubbed when she received a late invitation to her mother-in-law Gail's 75th birthday celebration around May 2023. Erin had also posted several social media messages to her online friends criticizing her estranged husband and her in-laws. On the 29th of July 2023, at her home in Leongatha, Erin cooked beef Wellington for lunch for her in-laws, Dawn and Gail Patterson, Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson, and Heather's husband Ian. Her estranged husband Simon Patterson was invited but did not attend. Erin's children were at the cinema at the time of the lunch. The meal contained Amanita phalloides and deathcap mushrooms. On the 30th of July 2023, all 4 guests were admitted to hospital with suspected gastroenteritis. Erin went to Leongatha Hospital with reported stomach pains and diarrhea, but repeatedly refused to be admitted. Doctors were so concerned for Erin and Simon's children, who purportedly ate leftovers of the beef Wellington with the mushrooms and pastry removed, and doctors were adamant that the children should also be checked for any adverse reactions. It was suggested that Erin was initially reluctant to seek medical attention for the children. On the 4th of August, 5 days after the lunch, 70-year-old Gail Patterson and 66-year-old Heather Wilkinson died in hospital, and an investigation was launched by Victoria Police. On the 5th of August, 70-year-old Don Pattinson died in hospital, despite receiving a liver transplant. 69-year-old Ian Wilkinson remained hospitalized for over 7 weeks and survived. He was discharged on the 23rd of September. A funeral for his wife was held on the 4th of October. On the 14th of August, police confirmed that Erin had provided them with a detailed statement in which she said she had brought dried mushrooms from an Asian supermarket in the Melbourne suburb of Mount Waverley. This is 73 miles from Leongatha, 3 months before the lunch. Erin also said in the statement that she intentionally disposed of the food dehydrator that police found in a skip bin at a transfer station in Coonawarra after people began accusing her of intentionally poisoning the meal. On the 3rd of November, 2023, Erin appeared at Latrobe Valley Magistrates Court in Morwell. On the 7th of May, 2024, she pleaded not guilty to the 3 murder charges and 5 attempted murder charges. 4 of the attempted murder charges alleged she had repeatedly targeted her ex-husband Simon, but those charges were subsequently dropped. Erin was tried in the Supreme Court of Victoria before a jury, presided over by Justice Christopher Beale. At Erin's request, the trial was held in Morwell rather than Melbourne. The trial began on the 29th April 2025 and covered 3 charges of murder and 1 charge of attempted murder. During the trial, Crown Prosecutor Nanette Rogers focused on Erin's dehydrator and told the court that Erin lied when she told police she had never owned one. The court was shown Erin's Facebook posts, sharing photos of a dehydrator along with dehydrated mushrooms. The Crown detailed Erin's purchase of the dehydrator and subsequent trips in April 2023 to Loch and Outram, known deathcap mushroom habitats. The Crown presented CCTV footage of Erin dumping the dehydrator at the Coonawarra transfer station after the lunch. The Crown noted that police had forensically examined the retrieved dehydrator and found Erin's fingerprints and traces of Amanita phalloides mushroom toxins, which were also detected in urine samples of Erin's male guests. The Crown suggested that Erin had not eaten the same meal as her alleged victims, had lied about her cancer diagnosis, the pretext on which she had invited the guests, and had lied about experiencing stomach pains and diarrhea following the lunch. The Crown also suggested that Erin had lied about having serious medical issues to ensure that her children were not present at the lunch. The Crown stated that trying to prove that Erin had a motive would not be part of their case. Erin's counsel, Colin Mandy, acknowledged Erin's lie to police about not owning a food dehydrator or foraging for mushrooms. Colin argued that Erin panicked after learning that her lunch guests died after eating food she had cooked. Erin's counsel accepted the Crown's argument that Patterson had never been diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Colin stated that Erin was close to her children and Dawn and Gail Patterson, her parents-in-law, who died after eating the lunch. Colin said the defense did not dispute that deathcap mushrooms had caused the deaths of the lunch guests. Colin argued that Erin did not intend to cause harm to anyone that day, and that the defense would be arguing that the victims' deaths were a tragedy and terrible accident. The Crown presented several witnesses, including Erin's husband Simon Patterson, Ian Wilkinson, child protection practitioner Katrina Cripps, and several medical personnel who attended to Erin and her family. The court also heard video testimony from her children. In addition, the prosecution presented several expert witnesses, including the mycologist Thomas May and Camille Truong, the toxicologist Dr. Dimitri Giro-Stamoulos, Plant Health Australia Diagnostics Manager David Lovelock, digital forensic science expert Matthew Sorrell, and Victorian Police digital forensics officer Shaman Fox Hendry. The court also heard from several police personnel, including Detective Senior Constable Quang Tran, Detective Sergeant Luke Farrell, and Detective Leading Senior Constable Stephen Eppingstall. The defense's sole witness was Erin Patterson, who acknowledged that she and Simon had separated between 2009 and 2015, but that their relationship had improved by 2023. She acknowledged foraging for mushrooms in the Leongatha and Korumbura areas, but said that the foraged mushrooms had ended up in the lunch due to a labeling mistake. Erin also admitted lying about her cancer diagnosis and claimed that she had been too embarrassed to tell her relatives that she was about to get gastric bypass surgery to deal with her weight. She testified that she had organized the lunch in order to bolster relations with the wider Patterson family, who she feared were becoming distant due to her separation from her husband, and that she had vomited following the lunch after eating a cake that her husband's mother had brought. She also said that she experienced diarrhea for several days after the lunch and had taken drugs to treat the symptoms. During cross-examination, Erin denied that she had deliberately cultivated the death cap mushrooms, purposely placing them in the beef Wellington and weighing them to calculate the fatal dose for a person. She said she lied to the police and health authorities about dehydrating mushrooms in food because she was afraid of being blamed for the mushroom poisonings. Erin admitted to lying about medical appointments, including a needle biopsy. She also denied accessing posts in May 2022 about death cap mushrooms on the platform iNaturalist, despite the Crown presenting a report from data extracted from Erin's computer showing that the Bing search engine was used to search for iNaturalist over the same time frame. Erin denied she attempted to cover her tracks after discharging herself from Leongatha Hospital against medical advice on August 1st, 2023. She also disputed Ian Wilkinson's testimony that she had used a different colored plate from her guests and denied making a 6-beef Wellington for her estranged husband Simon in case he attended the lunch. She also disputed testimony by medical staff that she was reluctant to allow her children to be tested for poisoning. Erin also denied misleading health authorities when she initially claimed that she had bought the death cap mushrooms from an Asian grocer. She denied lying that Simon Patterson had accused her of poisoning his parents with a dehydrator a few days after the lunch. Erin also rejected the Crown's argument that she had factory reset her mobile phone 4 times in August 2023 to conceal evidence. The Crown's closing arguments to the jury were that Erin, over the course of several months prior to the 29th of July lunch, fabricated her cancer claim as a means of inviting her guests over for lunch, deliberately incorporated death cap mushrooms into the meals served to her guests while ensuring that neither she nor her children consumed the poisoned food, pretended to have diarrhea following the lunch to make it appear that she had suffered from death cap poisoning, and engaged in a sustained cover-up to conceal her role in poisoning her guests, including lying about the origins of the mushrooms served in the meal and attempting to dispose of her food dehydrator at a landfill, lied about her level of cooperation with health authorities, invited her lunch guests as a gesture of friendship, had never told her guests that she had been diagnosed with cancer, planned gastric bypass surgery, and questioned testimony that Erin had experienced diarrhea after eating cake following that lunch. The closing arguments to the jury, as presented by Erin's counsel over 3 days, were that Erin had accidentally added death cap mushrooms to the meal. There was a reasonable possibility that Erin had not intended to kill or cause serious injury to her guests. Human memory could be faulty. Questioning the account of prosecution witness Kylie Ashton, the Crown's evidence about Erin's conflicts with her estranged husband and in-laws were erroneous, including reliance on a social media conversation in December 2022 that criticized her in-laws, defended the credibility of Erin's testimony. The testimony from lunch survivor Ian Wilkinson that Erin served the guests on 4 large gray plates while eating from a different colored plate was of no consequence. Erin's online searches for death cap mushrooms reflected idle curiosity rather than malevolent intentions. The Crown's arguments that Erin committed murder without a motive, lied about her cancer to lure her guests, and thought she could pass off the poisoning as a gastrointestinal infection should be rejected. Erin panicked and lied after her estranged husband accused her of poisoning his parents. The Crown's argument that Erin had either disposed or factory reset her original mobile phone to conceal her tracks should be rejected, and that Erin's medical tests from 2 days after the lunch showed that she had become unwell after consuming the beef Wellington meal, stating that the test recorded low potassium and elevated hemoglobin and fibrinogen levels. After reserve jurors were excused, the 12 remaining jurors were sequestered for the duration of their deliberations. On July 7, 2025, they returned their verdict, finding Erin Patterson guilty of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. On July 30th, 2025, the Supreme Court of Victoria barred Erin from selling her home in Leongatha to potentially satisfy any future claims for compensation or restitution. Justice Beale heard victim impact statements from relatives on 25th August and on 8th September sentenced Erin to 3 life sentences plus 25 years of imprisonment, all to be served concurrently. She will become eligible for parole in 2056. Erin's new barrister, Richard Edney, announced on October 2nd that Erin will appeal the guilty verdicts, though the grounds of appeal were not outlined and no documents have been lodged. At the same time, human rights lawyer Julian McMahon was added to Erin's legal team. McMahon had previously acted as a lawyer for Van Thuong Nguyen, who was executed in Singapore for drug trafficking in 2005. On October 6th, the Victorian Director of Public Prosecutions confirmed it would appeal Erin's sentence, describing it as manifestly inadequate. On November 3rd, the Court of Appeal granted leave for Erin to appeal her guilty verdict. As of 2026, Erin Patterson is in prison in Australia, following her conviction in 2025. She received life sentences with a non-parole period of 33 years. Reports indicate she is being held at the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre in Melbourne. She has also lodged an appeal against her conviction. This is a case that shocked people around the world because it began with something that seemed so ordinary, a family meal, a gathering, and a moment that should have been remembered very differently. But behind the headlines, real families were left dealing with unimaginable loss. And perhaps that's what makes this case so unsettling. The idea that sometimes the stories that seem impossible become reality. Thank you for watching Into the Night Stories. And as always, stay safe out there.